Hello, my name is Razan, and I'm here to present our project Vision-Based Manipulation and Mobility with my teammates Göreg, Jonathan, Leonard, and Matteo, under the supervision of Pietro and Christian. In the last decades, we have seen an increasing demand to automate repetitive and dull tasks, especially in industry. One example is this task, which is a kitting task. Usually, kitting tasks involve having some materials in a station, like here in the inventory area, and there is a need to move these items to another station, which is in here, the assembly area. Automating such tasks by using a robot can increase actual productivity and allow allocating human resources to more important jobs than this. But automation can be extended to other aspects of our life, and this is actually where our projects comes. Inspired by the kitting task, we decided to extend it to another domain, which is healthcare and specifically nursing home. We've all heard how sometimes some nursing homes are understaffed, and our thought why not automating some of these repetitive tasks that doesn't need actually human, like setting a dining table, which resemble the kitting tasks that we were talking about before. When setting a table, you have two stations for in here the kitchen and the dining area, and you need to transfer the items from one area to another. Our idea is using a robot to transfer these items, then having the robot set the table according to specific requirements, like the spoon right to the bowl, the knife to the left, and so on. In our project, thanks to Vara and the Service Robotic Lab at ABB Corporate Research, we were able to use two robots, the mobile UMI and the stationary UMI. We designed a collaborative mission between the two sets of robots to set a dining table. To do that, we combine different components that some of my teammates have developed during their PhD studies. These components are computer vision that allow us to detect objects and estimate pose and shape of an object. A grasping component that uses heuristic vision-based grasping point computation. And finally, a high-level planner that allow high-level specification of a desired outcome without the need to actually specify how the robot should achieve this desired outcome. Now I will present a demo of our mission. Now we can see the mobile UMI that has a Connect camera. Using the camera and the vision component that was developed by one of my teammates, the robot will be able to see the objects in front of it and detect it as a knife. Then it will use the other component, which is the grasping component, to calculate heuristic to identify where it should like grasp the knife. Afterward, it will pick the item and move it to the stationary UMI table. Next, it will place it near the stationary UMI. And after fetching all the items to the stationary UMI table, the next part will start, which is setting the table according to a specified outcome. To do that, we used a high-level planner that was developed by another team member here. Using this component, we don't need to tell the robot exactly how to achieve a specific setting of the table. We just need to tell it what we want. So only the desired outcome, which in our case, we want the ball to be right to the mug, and we want there's a specific space between the mug and the ball, and that's it. The stationary OMI will use again the vision component to identify the objects in front of it, so it will know which is the ball, which is the mug, and so. And also using the grasping component to know where it should grasp each of these items. It will start to execute the plan and until it reaches the desired outcome that was specified using the high-level specification language that we talked about before. By that, we can see here that our mission was successfully done here. Now we will move to the next part, which is each of my teammates will explain the different components that were used to implement this mission.
All our robots are equipped with an Azure Kinect RGBD camera. We take the RGB image and feed it through a mask RCNN to obtain an instant segmentation of the view. That means we get a mask and a category for each object. Using the depth information of the camera, we can obtain a 3D point cloud for each object. We then estimate the pose and the shape for each object in the scene. For forks and knives, we simply apply singular value decomposition to obtain the main axis of variation, which allows us to grasp the object. For the other object categories, mugs, plates, and bowls, we apply a pipeline that I'm doing research on to estimate jointly the pose and the shape of the objects. Here we can see an overview of the pipeline. The core of the method are categorical object models, which allow us to find a low-dimensional representation of the shape of an object category and interpolate between such shapes. The pipeline has three main components: an initialization network, the decoder of the generative model, and a differentiable renderer. The input to the method is the masked depth image, which is converted to a 3D point cloud and fed through the initialization network to obtain a first estimate of the low-dimensional shape descriptor, the scale of the object, and the 3D position as well as 3D orientation. The shape descriptor is taken and passed through the decoder of the generative model to obtain a full discretized signed distance field representing the shape of the object. We take that discretized signed distance field together with the scale and the pose to estimate the current depth image using a differentiable renderer. We then take that depth image and compare it with the measured depth image and compute a loss term based on that. We can then minimize this loss to optimize the shape, scale, and pose to better match the measured depth image. Here we can see an example. In the top left, you see the point cloud as given by the Azure Kinect camera. We apply the initialization network to get a rough estimate of the object, and then we iteratively refine it to obtain this final estimate shown in the top right. On the bottom, you can see this iterative optimization procedure as an animation. Here's another example for a bowl. Next, Jonathan will talk about how we compute the grasping points based on these estimates.
For manipulation, we use ABB Humi robots with standard grippers. The only hardware change we did, except for mounting the camera, is that we cover the finger surfaces in neoprene for better grip. We use high-level programming in Rapid with the target positions as parameters. All the execution is done in Cartesian space, only needing online feedback during the suction cup search, thanks to the accurate calibration between the robot and the camera. We do general heuristics to handle arm configuration, singularities, and joint limits. For example, we try to have the elbows pointing outwards from the robot as a general heuristic. And of course, this is because the Yumi arm is a 7-axis redundant arm, therefore having an infinite number of ways of reaching any point in the workspace. For grasping, we do a heuristic vision-based grasping point computation. As input, we have the object pose and the model, and as output, we have the position, the rotation, and the tool. In our case, it's either gripper or the suction cup. For the bowls, the point is always in the center, and we use the suction cup. For the knife and fork, again, we pick at the center, but we use the gripper instead. It's also very important here, as opposed to for the bowl, that we get the orientation correct. And as you can see, the red arrow corresponding to the x-axis is aligned with the knife and the fork. And finally, we also have the mug. The point is on the rim, opposite to the handle, and this is to avoid collisions with the handle. And the tool we use is the gripper. And now over to Georg.
In order to facilitate high-level planning, we employ Spatial, a temporal logic-based framework that allows users to specify complex missions by defining spatial relations between objects, such as the mug should be right of the plate, or the distance between the mug and the plate should be positive. Additionally, it allows users to define temporal relations on top of these spatial relations. For example, always the mug should be distant from the plate with a positive value, and eventually the mug should be both right and above of the plate. The spatial specification will automatically be translated into a deterministic finite automaton that handles all the temporal constraints of the specification. This allows us to have an online planning procedure with multiple steps. We use the DFA to plan the next step. First, we make an observation using the vision data acquired from the robot to find in which state we currently are. Then we find the desired next state, which is a state getting us closer to the accepting state. So we plan to enable the transition between the current and the planned next state, while avoiding to accidentally enable other transitions. Since Spatial allows for quantitative evaluation of specification formula and subformula, we can translate the goal of enabling a certain transition while avoiding to enable other transitions into a problem formulation more suited towards continuous domains. For example, for the specification formula that says that the green object should be right of the red object and some distance constraints, we can evaluate this formula by virtually moving, for example here, the red object to see how the specification evaluates. Red indicates higher values, and positive values are values satisfying the specification. Since spatial relations are symmetric, we can of course also move the green object right of the red object to satisfy the specification in the same way. Overall, starting from the specification of the mug being eventually on the top right of the plate, we can move the mug virtually and figure out the best point where to put the mug in the next step. So the planner output in the end will show that the mug should be positioned on this green position in order to satisfy the next step of the specification. This output is then sent to the actual grasping execution.
And by that, we come to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation. And again, we would like to thank Vara and the Service Robotic Lab for providing us the robots and hosting this project's activities. Thank you.